If you're a marketing student, I bet you've heard of McCarthy's 4Ps or some extension of the 4Ps, such as the 7 or 8Ps. Sure, you may even know someone who's used the 4Ps to create a marketing mix. Unfortunately, to reduce the marketing mix to a specific number of Ps is problematic. According to the Professor of Marketing, Christian Grunus, the 4Ps of marketing, that's price, product, place and promotion, represent a significant oversimplification of Borden's original concept of the marketing mix. And it's for this reason I'll summarise Neil Borden's seminal paper, The Concept of the Marketing Mix, for you. What's more, towards the end of this video, I'll provide you with 3 useful tips on how best to use his paper to achieve a better score in your next marketing mix assessment. So let's begin. Published by the Journal of Advertising in 1964, The Concept of the Marketing Mix is one of the most important papers in the field of marketing research because it provided us with a colourful term to help us better understand how we do marketing. In The Concept of the Marketing Mix, Professor of Marketing and Advertising Neil Borden explains how the concept came about. The phrase marketing mix was suggested to me by a paragraph in a research bulletin on the management of marketing costs written by my associate professor, James Culleton. In this study of manufacturers' marketing costs, he described the business executive as a decider, an artist, a mixer of ingredients who sometimes follows a recipe prepared by others, sometimes prepares his own recipe as he goes along, sometimes adapts a recipe to the ingredients immediately available, and sometimes experiments with or invents ingredients no one else has tried. I liked his idea of calling a marketing executive a mixer of ingredients, one who's constantly engaged in fashioning creatively a mix of marketing procedures and policies in his efforts to produce a profitable enterprise. In other words, the marketing mix was created to help marketing managers to classify the costs associated with doing business in sectors where costs are widely divergent. What's more, the idea a marketing manager is like a chef insofar that they mix ingredients to create something should be accredited to James Culleton and perhaps not Neil Borden. So if marketing managers use a variety of ingredients to create something new, what ingredients can they choose from? For Borden, there are 12 ingredients. These are policies and procedures relating to product planning, such as product lines to be offered, the qualities, the design, etc., the markets to sell, to whom, where, when, and in what quantity. New product policies, such as research and development programs. The second ingredient has to do with pricing, such as the levels to adopt, specific prices, whether they're odd or even, pricing policies, such as one price or varying prices, price maintenance, or use of list prices, etc., and margins to adopt for the company and for the trade. The third ingredient is branding. That's a selection of trademarks, branding policies, whether to individualise or to group them under a family brand, and to sell under private labels or unbranded ones. The fourth ingredient is channels of distribution. That's the channels to use between the plant and the consumer, the degree of selectivity among wholesalers and retailers, efforts to gain cooperation of the trade. The fifth ingredient is personal selling. That's the burden placed on personal selling and the methods to be employed in the manufacturer's organisation, the wholesale segments of the trade, and the retail segment of the trade. The sixth ingredient is advertising. That's the amount to spend. In other words, the burden to be placed on advertising. Also, the copy platform to adopt. such as the product image desired, the corporate image desired, the mix of advertising to the trade, through the trade, and to consumers. The seventh ingredient deals with promotion. That's the burden to place on special selling plans or devices directed at or through the trade. The eighth ingredient is packaging, the formulation of packages and labels. The ninth ingredient is display. That's the burden to be put on the display to help affect sales. The 10th ingredient is servicing. That's providing a service when it's needed. The 11th ingredient is physical handling, such as the warehousing, the transportation, and the inventories. And the final one is fact-finding and analysis. That's securing analysis and the use of facts in marketing operations. So taken together, a marketing manager can use these elements to create several marketing mixes for each product. So that's the theory. What about the real-world parallels? Well, when we consider the different types of marketing mixes present in the sneaker market, we can see that each element of the marketing mix can be manipulated and used in such a way that helps the business turn a profit. Take Nike Air Jordans as an example. Not only do we find that they've used a multitude of marketing mixes for the brand, but also those mixes have changed over time. This is most notable when we consider how Nike's product planning policies and procedures have evolved. Remember that product planning policies and procedures relate to product lines to be offered. That's the qualities and the design, etc. The markets to sell. That's the whom, where, when, and in what quantity. And new product policies around research and development programs, for example. Therefore, if we use these headings to help us reveal some of the ways in which Nike could turn a profit on Air Jordan line of shoes, we would identify that their animal skin policy and their Amazon Bio-Me leather sourcing policy may be contributing to the success of the product. Now, while this is only one example of how an element of the marketing mix contributes to the profitability of a company, the approach is the same when a company begins to develop a full marketing mix. That is, identify what marketing related policies and procedures that a company needs to adopt to help them to implement a profitable marketing program. Now, before a marketing manager can develop a specific number of policies and procedures for each element found within their marketing program, it is important to ask what overall marketing strategy has been or might be employed to bring about a profitable operation. Not only does this help marketing managers to integrate their marketing plan into the overall strategy for the company, but it also helps them to identify what forces govern the mixing of elements, meaning how a marketing manager decides to mix their ingredients for their marketing program rests on the governing strategy and the forces that underpin it. This then raises the question, what forces underpin a marketing mix? For Borden, these forces are, now bear with me, consumers' buying behaviour as determined by their motivation in purchasing, their buying habits, their living habits, environments such as their present and their future as revealed by trends for the environmental influences, consumers' attitudes towards products and their use of them, their buying power, that's the number of buyers in the marketplace, the trade's behaviour, that's wholesalers and retailers' behaviour, as influenced by their motivations, their structure and practices, and their attitudes, as well as trends in structure and procedures that portend change. We've also to think about competitors' position and behaviour as influenced by the industry structure and the firm's relation thereto. In other words, the size and strength of competitors, the number of competitors and the degree of industry concentration, We have to think about indirect competition from other products and relation of supply to demand, whether there's oversupply or undersupply. In addition, product choices offered by consumers by the industry, such as the quality, the price, the service, and the degree to which competitors compete on price versus non-price. There's also competitors' motivations and their attitudes and their likely responses to the actions of other firms. We've also to think about technological and social changes portending in supply and demand. And then there's governmental behaviour. That's the controls over marketing, whether there's regulations over products, regulations over pricing, regulations even over competitive practices and advertising and promotions. At this point, some of you may have identified that what Borden has just listed as the forces that shape a marketing program back in 1964 are the same forces we find today when scanning the external environment using the Pestel framework, or when we assess the attractiveness of an industry using Porter's 5 forces model. And for those of you who've not heard of those two analytical frameworks, relax. You will over the course of your studies, so don't worry. In addition to the policies and procedures of a marketing program and the forces that underpin such programs, Borden, towards the end of his paper, draws our attention to the idea that management must fashion their mixes to fit their resources. When building a marketing program to fit the needs of his firm, the marketing manager has to weigh the behavioural forces and then juggle the marketing elements in his mix with a key eye on the resources with which he has to work. In other words, the marketing manager must devise a mix of policies and procedures that fit their resources. For instance, Borden outlines how a company of limited resources can 1. Limit its production and sales to products whose potential is too small to attract the big fellows. 2. Seek to build sales on a highly limited, specialised line, whereas industry leaders seek patronage for full lines. Or 3. Go in for regional sales rather than attempt national distribution practiced by larger companies. Another approach that a small company can deploy is a push strategy, in contrast to pull strategies, where in this context the reputation of an established big player can be enough for distributors or customers to come to you to do business. A push strategy is where a smaller unknown firm need to establish their presence in the market by forcing their way into their minds of their customers through aggressive sales and advertising tactics. Drawing the paper to a close, Borden highlights two important issues pertaining to the concept of the marketing mix. The first one is the temporal aspect of the concept, when he states, at any time, the mix represents the program that a management has evolved to meet the problems with which it is constantly faced in an ever-changing and ever-challenging market. Put simply, the successful firm is one that can identify marketplace trends and adapt its marketing policies and procedures to reflect those changes. The second issue is one relating to a higher level objective. That's the legitimacy of marketing as an academic field of study. We must remember that at the time of writing his paper, marketing was a relatively new field in academia. So, to justify its seat at the table, so to speak, it needed to prove itself, thus encouraging researchers to align the marketing mix with masculine ideologies such as the scientific method. It would hopefully increase its appeal to the academic community and by extension, legitimise and validate marketing as a serious subject. A debate that still rages today. Now that I've summarised the main points in the article, how can you best utilise them to achieve a better score in your next marketing assessment. Firstly, explain the motivation behind the paper. This could be as simple as drawing attention to the need for marketing to legitimize itself as a serious field of study. As it was used to help identify costs associated with doing business, it aligned itself with the study of accounting, economics, and mathematics. Secondly, explain how the marketing mix is a more detailed version of McCarthy's 4 Ps. All too often, the marketing mix and the 4 Ps are used interchangeably. Therefore, differentiate between the two concepts. Demonstrate your deeper level of knowledge of marketing. And lastly, use the 12 ingredients and the forces that shape the marketing mix to help you better understand how a company turns a profit. Think back to the example of the Air Jordans. Nike developed its animal skin policy and the Amazon BioMe leather sourcing policy to reflect social changes, whereby some consumers prefer to deal with more ethical companies. I hope this short video has helped you to understand the concept of the marketing mix. If it has, I'm going to ask you to like the video or share it with someone who you think it will help, because not only will you help me grow the channel, but you'll also help someone else perhaps pass their course. A win-win. And if you have any questions related to the material in this video, simply ask in the comments section below and I'll do my very best to help you out. So, until our next summary, take care and remember to let first-class shortcuts help you to understand first-class research.